Welcome to Movie Magic. I'm your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and today we are ranking the 5 Indiana Jones movies, plus The Great Circle, the video game that came out in late 2024, and which fits pretty well in with the franchise, both in a timeline sense and in a tonal sense. I have reviewed all of these properties at this point in time. By the time you're watching this video, I have reviewed The Great Circle and its DLC in a couple separate videos, and I covered the OG film trilogy and the legacy sequels in a couple of different videos, respectively. And if you want my deeper thoughts on all of these films and like maybe a little bit more specifics in some regards, go watch any of those films. In regards to like the legacy sequels in particular, I do include some spoilers, so I decided that for today's video ranking these various titles that I wouldn't include any spoilers at all. So this is going to be a little bit more unscripted compared to all the rest of those videos, which are quite scripted. I'm just going to be ranking them from least favorite to favorite. And that's how things are going to go here. So that means we have 6 things to rank. Let's move on to that actual ranking. In 6th place at the very bottom of the bunch is the easiest place to put for anything regarding these films, and that is the Dial of Destiny. Dial of Destiny sucks. If you don't mind spoilers, you can watch the video from last week where I kind of go over all the things that I dislike about it, but it is bad. It is not a good rendition of Indiana Jones spiritually, like not in a tonal sense. It gets his character bad. It's like kind of in a character, it's a minor character assassination for him, and also some of the other characters at the end of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The new characters are extremely unmemorable and boring or annoying. The film is bloated. It is edited very poorly. There's no style or just anything worth watching in there. Like, there's no substance. It's bad. Like, Dial of Destiny is not just a not good Indiana Jones movie, even though it is definitely not that, because it tries to be Mission Impossible half the time. This is a bad movie, just straight up. There's basically nothing about it that I enjoyed except for the prologue. The first like 20 minutes, 25 minutes or something like that, really good actually. You know, the de-aging on Indy's face actually looks really good, and even though it is a bit distracting having older Harrison Ford kind of speak through that younger face, you can kind of tell it's like that's an old man's voice in a 40-year-old's face there. Despite that problem, the prologue is quite enjoyable, but the prologue is not worth watching by itself, and the rest of the movie is not worth watching at all. So like, this movie's terrible. I gave this a 1.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Not good. Just genuinely bad film, not enjoyable basically at all after the prologue, and everything else ruined, even the prologue for me. Next up, in 5th place, is going to be probably a pretty controversial opinion here. That's going to be the second Indiana Jones film. That's going to be The Temple of Doom, and that's not because it's a bad movie, actually. I think the only one of these 6 titles which I think is actively bad is The Dial of Destiny. It's the only one that's bad. Temple of Doom is not bad. In fact, it's good. It's decent. It is a thoroughly enjoyable film, but it's one where like the specific combination of the things that it is doing, both like in terms of the conceit, the like mythological and legendary angle, doesn't click into place for me the way that all the others do. Even Dial of Destiny's conceit kind of clicks in my brain a little bit better than the Shankara stones and stuff in here. But even so, The Temple of Doom is still a Spielberg film. It is still an indie film. It still feels like that at various different points. The main problem with Temple of Doom that I had was just the fact that I didn't really connect with a lot of that conceit very much. The structure is notably different than all 4 of the other films, so it's kind of just different. And different doesn't necessarily mean bad, but it's not necessarily the thing that I was really coming to the movie expecting or wanting it to be. I also didn't love that in the beginning of the movie, Indiana Jones feels more like Han Solo than he does Indiana Jones, so that kind of bothered me about the beginning. And then the special effects and the climax in particular, they're definitely a little bit dated. They're noticeably dated, and so are the special effects in the first and the third film too, but like, they still look good in the first film to the point that I'm not going to complain. And in the third film, it's used, the one bad special effect is used so sparingly that I'm very willing to overlook it. In Temple of Doom, it makes up a very big part of the finale, the big part of the final sequence, and that definitely brought it down a little bit because it doesn't look great and it's overused a little bit. So like there's just a few things about Temple of Doom that very slightly bring it down enough that I don't love it. I still like the movie. I'm going to rewatch it sometimes, but unless I'm planning to rewatch like all four of these movies, I'm not going to rewatch Temple of Doom very often. Like not like Raiders or Last Crusade or even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where I would be willing to rewatch those on their own just randomly. I probably won't do that with Temple of Doom. And just cutting this in here, recording later, because I forgot to include it for some reason, I rate Temple of Doom 3.5 out of 5. Still thoroughly decent film, but not one of my favorites. And next up, we're going to go into fourth place, where I think I'm going to put Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And you know, people are going to be mad at me for putting Crystal Skull above Temple of Doom, but this is just how I feel. I will acknowledge that the climax, the final act, broadly speaking, is pretty silly. The climax itself is just straight up dumb. You know, there are things about the climax that are just straight up dumb. And kind of as I mentioned there, the third act, the final act of Crystal Skull, is pretty messy in general. But overall, I just really enjoyed Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as a film. I really respect it. You know, I can take its premise seriously enough that even though the climax is pretty dumb, I still enjoyed the rest of the movie getting up to that point a ton. In fact, the more time that has passed since I've watched Crystal Skull, the more that I have liked it. In fact, when I immediately finished Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I was, you know, thinking to myself, I want this to be a 4 out of 5 because I enjoyed like the first 2 acts. I enjoyed the first 2/3 of it basically so much. But like I had to kind of bring it down, leaning more towards a 3.5 out of 5 to be the same as the Temple of Doom, which is a slight preference for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull because I enjoyed those first couple of acts so much. But like I said, the more time that has passed, the more that I like it in spite of the silliness of the climax, so that I give Kingdom of the Crystal Skull 4 out of 5. I just really like it. I think it is a very competent film, and it captures the spirit of the franchise in such a way that I do not understand how it technically has the lowest rating of the 5 of them on Goodreads. Dial of Destiny has 2.9, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull has 2.8. Sorry, not on Goodreads. Did I say Goodreads? I meant Letterboxd, of course. I do most of my unscripted content like this on book review stuff on the main channel, so that's probably why I said Goodreads. In either case, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is not a 2.8 out of 5. It is definitely better than Dial of Destiny is. The fact that it is technically rated on average lower by the general audiences than Dial of Destiny dumbfounds me to no end. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is a good movie. You might not like some of the decisions, but it is at the very least a good movie, and that puts it above Dial of Destiny, just kind of objectively speaking. But next up, we're going to talk about The Great Circle, which is going to be in third place, but technically this and the second place option, which I guess I'll just say together, will be Raiders of the Lost Ark. These two are kind of interchangeable, like second and third place in my ranking of these major Indiana Jones titles. They're basically like kind of on equal footing. You know, there are things about each of them that ever so slightly hold the film back, but not enough to really make that big of a bugaboo about it. The Great Circle is like, say, Troy Baker occasionally kind of comes out as the voice actor instead of sounding like Harrison Ford, but the fact that he sounds so much like Indiana Jones throughout most of the game is just astounding. It's actually really, really impressive. It's also a really fun game. You know, there's the critique that like it's kind of weird to play an Indiana Jones game in first person, even though the game is actually really good in spite of that, and kind of makes me believe that that was the right decision retroactively. Like, it was really great. You also have a lot of stuff about the Great Circle that just makes it fit in tonally. The adventure's there, the humor's there, the writing is there, and it also fits into the timeline set up by Raiders and The Last Crusade as well, because there's kind of a 2-year jump in between those. There's a full year in which nothing happens, and the Great Circle just kind of fits right there, and it works, and it respects the tone of the franchise. It respects the timeline and chronology of the franchise as well, going so far as having Indy fired from Marshall College for not returning in time to do his job in the Great Circle, and that's why he's at a different college in The Last Crusade, for example. Like, that's a pretty cool way to actually fit that into the timeline. I think that The Great Circle is really, really, really good. I loved it a lot. Even though this ranking right now, when I'm recording this, does not include the DLC with it, I have no reason to believe that the DLC would bring it up or down too major in either direction. I'm just going to say that this is in third place, but basically tied for second place as well, which puts us with Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is in second place, but also tied for third place. These two are kind of interchangeable depending on if you want the film or if you want the game. Both of these titles I would give 4.5 out of 5, like basically right there at perfect, but ever so slightly missing the mark in one degree or another. That's not to say that Raiders necessarily misses a lot. I just kind of got annoyed by how yelly that Marion is as a character, and the bad audio quality, well, I should say like the dated, 40 plus year old audio quality makes her yelling just, it grates after a little while, and that started to bother me by the end of the movie. But it's one of those things that's so minor. As a piece of cinema, Raiders of the Lost Ark is just a classic. The prologue is maybe the best opening sequence to a film ever. It's definitely one of the most iconic. Nobody can question that. And it's also just great. Like Spielberg coming out the gates, rip raring to go with this film. Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones is incredible. The attempt to be combining, myth and legend with historicity in such an interesting way was a slam dunk of a concept that just totally worked. Raiders is an exceptional film. Great Circle is also a very great game, so these two being basically side by side, hand in hand with each other in the top 3 of the 6 Indiana Jones titles, I think is totally worth doing. But that leaves us with the one last title to go to be put into first place, and that is obviously The Last Crusade, which is so perfect of a movie, it might even be better than perfect, because that adventuring spirit, the tone, the humor, everything is there. It's also just a better film. I think maybe the only thing that The Last Crusade does that isn't quite better than Raiders of the Lost Ark is just the climax, where the villain's comeuppance is more impactful in Raiders. It is more of a climactic moment, whereas in The Last Crusade, it doesn't feel quite as much the thing, but that's largely because The Last Crusade's focus is slightly different as well, where the MacGuffin is more inert. The MacGuffin doesn't even make an appearance on the screen until much later comparatively, and the film focuses more on a character relationship than it does on that MacGuffin compared to Raiders, and that relationship is, of course, the one depicted by Harrison Ford and Sean Connery, who on screen together are just the funniest. They are so good. Every interaction between these two on this film is brilliant. It is hilarious. There's a lot of great heart in here. So many sequences in this are just as iconic as the first, or arguably as iconic as the first. That location in Jordan, in which case the last location was shot, was just great. And so much about The Last Crusade just works,
All of this just works.
Like I said, it's a movie that I really love so much that I think it is better than perfect. I was rewatching it wondering if I would like it more than Raiders or not, because I wasn't sure whether I remembered liking Raiders or The Last Crusade more from, years and years ago. But no, The Last Crusade is definitely the best one, is definitely my favorite one. It is a perfect 5 out of 5, and if I could give it 6 out of 5, I would. So that is how I would rank these 6 titles. Thank you for watching this video. If you did, let me know in the comments below how you would rate these 6 titles. Of course, if you've seen all 5 of them plus played the game, whichever of these you have watched, give me your ranking in the comment below, what you would rate each film as well. If you dare put Kingdom of the Crystal Skull below Dial of Destiny, I will probably shoot you on sight in Minecraft. But other than that, I would not argue with many different rankings here. I know so many people, for example, who say that Temple of Doom is their favorite, that I respect that opinion a ton, even though I personally really disagree with it, and I hope that everybody would respect my opinion in regards to this list as well, even though it is a little bit out there comparatively. I know that the Temple of Doom and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull opinions there are kind of hot takes, and I'm probably going to be roasted for it. But I would like to hear your opinions of this list and your own list down in the comments below, of course. Thank you one final time for watching. For now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I hope to see you guys in the next video, whatever that may be.